A virgin nurse saved a stranger who almost died by the sea. He was a broken millionaire, shattered by life, hiding secrets no one could ever imagine. When he found out she was a virgin, he swore he'd never let her go. If you love love stories and romance, stick around till the end. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling us where you're listening from. Stay tuned. The damp coastal wind of the New England shore cut through the early morning hours like a frozen blade, carrying with it the scent of salt and seaweed that Emily had known since childhood. Her footsteps sank into the cold sand of Rockport Beach, a sacred ritual that preceded each shift at the local public hospital. Her simple chestnut hair, tied back in a practical bun, swayed to the rhythm of her walk as she tried to find strength for another day, fighting the epidemic that was devastating the small coastal towns of Massachusetts. Daughter of Richard, a Tahe, fisherman whom the sea had swallowed during a storm 3 years ago, and of Martha Wilson, a retired teacher who now lost herself in the silent labyrinths of Alzheimer's, Emily had learned early that life was made of losses and resilience. Each dawn was a battle won, each breath a promise that there was still love waiting for her, even when everything seemed to conspire against her faith. On that September morning, the sky hung grey and heavy above her head, heralding another of the storms that typically ravage the region. Emily was walking lost in thought when something on the sand caught her attention. A dark figure, partially covered with seaweed, wet clothes clinging to the motionless body. For an instant, her heart stopped. It wouldn't be the first time the sea had returned a body to the shore. She approached slowly, her heart beating erratically. It was a man, appearing to be in his early 30s, pale skin contrasting with the dark hair plastered to his forehead. She knelt beside him, her knees sinking into the damp sand, and pressed 2 fingers against his neck. The pulse was there, weak like the flutter of butterfly wings, but present. He was alive. "Sir, can you hear me?" she whispered, turning him to his side to drain water from his lungs. The clothes were expensive, she noticed, even soaked and destroyed by the force of the sea. He wasn't a local fisherman. She called for help, and old Mr. Jenkins, who was preparing the first boat of the day, ran toward her. Together they improvised first aid until the ambulance arrived, Emily holding the stranger's cold hand as if she could transfer her own life to him. At the hospital, he was registered as Patient X, without documents, without a voice, without a past. But he had eyes. When he opened them 3 days later during Emily's overnight shift, she felt as if the world had stopped. They were dark eyes, deep like the turbulent sea that had taken her father, but they carried a pain that she immediately recognized. It was the pain of someone who had lost everything, including the will to live. He didn't speak, only stared at her as if she were the only person alive in a devastated world. Emily cared for him with the same dedication she gave all her patients, but there was something different there. When she adjusted his IV, she felt his eyes following every movement. When she changed his bandages, she noticed how he held his breath when her hands touched his skin. When she brought hot soup during night shifts, he looked at her as if she were an angel who had descended from heaven just to save him. One night, during a feverish delirium, she heard him murmur her name. "Emily," he said in a hoarse, broken voice, as if he were calling her from a deep place that she herself didn't know existed in her heart. She felt her entire body tremble at the sound of his voice, a vibration that awakened something dormant in her soul. How did he know her name? Had he read it on her badge? Or perhaps in the midst of delirium had he created a name for the woman who had saved him? The next morning, when she arrived for her shift, she found the bed empty. He had disappeared, like a mirage, leaving only a gold bracelet on the white pillow. Emily picked up the jewelry with trembling hands, feeling the cold weight of the metal against her skin. There was an engraving on the inside. "To the one who brought me back to life." Her heart raced, a mixture of relief and sadness filling her chest. At least he was well enough to leave. 6 months passed since the mysterious man's disappearance, and Emily had kept the gold bracelet in a small wooden box alongside her parents' wedding ring. Sometimes, on the loneliest nights, she would take it out and hold it up to the light, trying to decipher the mystery behind those dark eyes that still visited her in dreams. The epidemic had finally subsided, but it had left deep scars in the region. Many families had lost loved ones, and Emily had become an almost maternal figure for those who survived. Her reputation as a dedicated and caring nurse had spread throughout the region, reaching the ears of influential people who summered on the Massachusetts coast. That's how she received an unexpected invitation, a job offer that would change her life forever. The human resources manager of Atlantic Resort, a newly opened luxury complex between Rockport and Gloucester, had approached. The hospital interested in hiring a private nurse to care for VIP guests. The salary was 3 times what she earned at the public hospital, enough money to pay for a private clinic for her mother, who had worsened considerably in recent months. Emily hesitated. Leaving the hospital meant abandoning patients who depended on her, trading social medicine for the medicine of the privileged. But when she saw her mother, Martha, once again lost in her own backyard, looking for a husband the sea had taken 3 years ago, she knew she had no choice. She accepted the offer. Atlantic Resort was an architectural masterpiece built on the dunes, with glass and steel structures that reflected the blue of the ocean. Private bungalows scattered amid the native vegetation, a luxury spa, restaurants, run by renowned chefs, and a medical team available to guests 24 hours a day. Emily had never seen so much luxury concentrated in one place. On her first day of work, she was greeted by the medical coordinator, Dr. Regina, an elegant middle-aged woman who took her on a tour of the facilities. "Our main guest is quite demanding," she explained as they walked along polished marble corridors. Jason West, founder of Westtech, one of the country's largest technology companies. He's recovering from a difficult period in his life and requires special care. Emily felt the name echo in her mind like a distant echo. Jason West. She had heard of him on television, in newspapers, a billionaire entrepreneur who had built a technological empire from scratch, dominating markets, media, and hearts with the same calculating coldness with which he conducted his business. But in recent months, his name had been associated with corporate scandals that ruined hundreds of investors. He specifically requested a nurse from the region, Dr. Regina continued, someone familiar with local traditions who knew how to deal with traumas related to the sea. Emily's heart raced. A strange intuition, almost supernatural, took over her mind. When they reached the main bungalow, an imposing structure with a panoramic view of the ocean, she felt her legs tremble. The coordinator knocked gently on the glass door, and a deep voice answered from inside. "Come in." The door opened, and Emily nearly fainted. There he was, the man she had saved on the beach, now wearing expensive clothes, his dark hair combed back, his skin tanned by the sun. But the eyes were the same, deep and tempestuous like the sea that had nearly taken him. Jason West stared at her with an expression that mixed surprise and something more dangerous, something that made her blood boil in her veins. "Leave us alone," he said to Dr. Regina, without taking his eyes off Emily. The coordinator discreetly exited, closing the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily felt her heart beating so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Jason approached slowly, like a predator circling his prey, until he was so close she could smell the expensive cologne he wore mixed with the scent of the sea that still seemed to permeate his skin. "You saved me," he said, his hoarse voice, laden with an emotion she couldn't decipher. "Saved a man who didn't deserve to be saved." Emily found her voice, though trembling. Anyone would have done the same. "No," he shook his head, his black eyes piercing her. "You don't understand. That night I wasn't there by accident. I threw myself into the sea, Emily. I wanted to die, I wanted it all to end, but you brought me back." The revelation hit her like a punch to the stomach. The man she had saved had attempted suicide, and now he was there, standing before her, revealing the darkest secret of his soul. Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Jason's revelation echoed in her mind like a scream in the void. He had tried to take his own life, and she, without knowing, had been the divine instrument that brought him back. The weight of that responsibility fell on her shoulders like an anchor. Why? She asked, her voice barely audible. Why did you want to die? Jason moved away, walking to the glass window that faced the ocean. The waves broke violently against the rocks, creating a symphony of foam and fury that seemed to mirror the turmoil in his soul. You know my public story, he said without turning. Successful businessman, technology empire, billionaire fortune. But there are things the newspapers don't tell. Emily waited, feeling that he needed to speak, that those words had been dammed up for too long. My mother was a woman of faith, he continued, his voice laden with an old pain. Margaret West, a woman who believed in miracles, in true love, in everything I learned to despise. My father, Benjamin West, was a businessman addicted to prostitutes, betrayals, and dirty business. I witnessed scenes no child should see. My mother on her knees begging him to come home. Him laughing at her, calling her a naive saint. The words came out like confessions torn from a wounded soul. Emily approached slowly, feeling deep compassion for this man who had built walls around his heart. I learned that pure women are rare, he said, finally turning to face her, and that when you find one, you need to protect her from the world, possess her before she becomes corrupted. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. There was something dark in those words, something that made her want to run and stay at the same time. I'm not your property, she murmured, but even she noticed how weak her voice sounded, almost without conviction. No? He came closer again, this time with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You work for me now. You take care of me. You're here because I wanted you to be. I'm here because I need the money to care for my mother, Emily replied, trying to regain firmness in her voice. Your mother, Martha Wilson, former teacher at the municipal school, diagnosed with Alzheimer's 2 years ago. Your father, Richard, a fisherman who disappeared at sea during a storm. You live in a simple house on Maple Street, number 47, paint your nails light pink, and have a crescent moon-shaped birthmark on your right shoulder. Emily backed away, the blood draining from her face. How do you know all that? I investigated. You, Emily, since the day you disappeared from the hospital. I needed to know who was the woman who saved me, and I discovered interesting things. He stopped right in front of her, so close she could see the small scars that crossed his face, probably the result of his fight against the sea. I discovered that you're a virgin. The word fell between them like a bomb. Emily felt her face burn with shame and anger. That's none of your business. It shouldn't be, he agreed, but his eyes shone with a dangerous intensity. But it is, because you saved me, Emily, and now we're linked forever. You carry part of my soul and I want all of yours. Emily tried to move away, but he gently held her arm without hurting her, but firmly enough to prevent her from fleeing. I'm not a good man, he whispered, bringing his face closer to hers. I'm obsessive, possessive, broken inside. But when I look at you, I feel there's still salvation for me. Let me go, she asked, although a treacherous part of her soul begged him not to let her. I can't, he replied, slowly releasing her, but I won't force you either. You'll stay because you'll want to stay. You'll discover there's something between us that goes beyond reason. Emily knew she should run, quit, go back to her simple and safe life. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her hesitate. Behind all that darkness was a silent plea, a desperate request for salvation. And she had been trained all her life to save people, even when it meant losing herself. My contract specifies medical care, she finally said, her voice firmer. Nothing beyond that. Jason smiled, and this time the smile reached his eyes. For now. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony of her room, watching the sea under the moonlight, the gold bracelet he had left at the hospital now on her wrist. She didn't know why she had put it on, but it felt like a link between them, an invisible chain that bound her to that dangerous and fascinating man. The following days were a dangerous dance between professionalism and sexual tension. Emily tried to keep her distance, fulfilling only her contractual obligations, but Jason seemed to have a special talent for creating situations that forced her to stay close to him. Panic attacks in the middle of the night, headaches that required therapeutic massages. insomnia that made him request her presence during long walks on the beach. "You're lying," she said one morning while checking his blood pressure. "There's nothing wrong with you." "There is," he answered, holding her wrist as she tried to put away the device. "I have you near me and I can't touch you. That's a disease." Emily felt the heat rising up the arm where he touched her. "Let me go." "You don't want me to let go." His eyes pierced her with an intensity that made her tremble. "Your body tells me one thing, but your mouth says another. Which one should I believe?" She pulled away abruptly, storing the medical equipment with trembling hands. "I'll prepare." "Your anxiety medication." "I don't need medication," he stood up, slowly approaching. "I need you." "Stop talking like that," Emily exploded, turning to face him. "You think you can buy anything, anyone, but I'm not for sale." "I don't want to buy you," he said, stopping a few inches from her. "I want to win you over. I want you to choose me, knowing exactly who I am." "And who are you?" she asked, challenging him with her gaze. "A man who ruined the lives of hundreds of people out of greed. A man who built an empire on lies and betrayals. A man who was so lost in his own darkness that he preferred to die rather than live with the weight of his sins." He extended his hand, gently touching her face. "But also a man who was saved by an angel, and who would now do anything to deserve that angel's love." Emily felt tears burning her eyes. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. I know you lost your father very young, and that taught you to value every moment of life. I know you care for your mother even when she doesn't recognize you. I know you work double shifts to pay the bills and have never allowed yourself the luxury of being just a woman." He brought his face closer to hers, whispering, "I know you're a virgin not for lack of opportunity, but by choice, because you believe the first man marks the soul forever." "Stop," she asked, but didn't move away. "I want to be that man." "Emily, I want to be the first and the last. I want to mark your soul the same way you marked mine." Before she could respond, he kissed her. It wasn't a gentle or romantic kiss. It was a desperate, hungry kiss, loaded with months of repressed desire. Emily tried to resist, but her body betrayed her principles. She returned the kiss with a passion she didn't know existed within her, her arms wrapping around his neck while he pressed her against the wall. When they separated, both were breathless. Emily pushed him away, wiping her lips with the back of her hand. "This can't happen." "It already has," he replied, his eyes shining with a dangerous satisfaction. "And it will happen again." "I won't let you use me." "I don't want to use you." He approached again, but she backed away. "I want to love you in my twisted, possessive, sick way, but I want to love you." "This isn't love," Emily shook her head. "It's obsession." "Maybe," he agreed, "but it's all I know how to do." That afternoon, Emily had to go out to get medications from the town pharmacy. When she returned, she found Jason talking with a man on the veranda. He was young, handsome, with gentle eyes and a smile that radiated kindness. When he saw her, the man approached with an even bigger smile. "You must be Emily," he said, extending his hand. "David Carter, volunteer doctor with Health Solidarity NGO. I've heard a lot about you at the hospital." Emily shook his hand, noting how warm and soft it was, so different from Jason's hands, which were always cold and possessive. "Pleasure to meet you, doctor." "Just David," he smiled. "I'm here for a medical consultation with Mr. West, but I couldn't resist meeting you in person. Your reputation as a nurse is legendary in the region." Emily felt her face flush at the compliment. David was exactly the kind of man she had always imagined falling in love with one day. Kind, dedicated, with his feet on the ground and his heart in the right place. He was everything Jason wasn't. "Dr. David was telling me about the social projects of the NGO," said Jason, but Emily noticed a new coldness in his voice. "Very interesting." "We're always in need of qualified nurses," continued David, looking directly at Emily. "Maybe you could visit us someday, or better yet, how about having dinner with me tomorrow? We can talk more about volunteer work." Emily looked at Jason and saw something dark pass through his eyes. A primitive, dangerous jealousy that reminded her of his words about possession and protection. "Guys, I don't know if I can." Of course you can, said Jason, but his smile was forced. Emily is an independent professional, free to make her own choices. But Emily knew that tone. It was the same one he used when talking about businesses. He intended to destroy. Emily accepted David's invitation, more out of defiance than genuine desire. She wanted to prove to Jason that she wasn't his property, that she had the right to make her own choices. But when she got ready for dinner, putting on a simple navy blue dress that enhanced her eyes, she felt as if she were betraying something sacred. The dinner was pleasant. David took her to a small, cozy restaurant in the center of town where they talked about medicine, vocation, and dreams. He was everything a sensible woman should want, stable, caring, with noble purposes. When he accompanied her to the door of her room at the resort, he kissed her hand like a gentleman. "I'd like to do this again soon," he said, his eyes shining with sincerity. "Me too," replied Emily, but the words sounded hollow, even to her. As soon as David left, Emily felt a presence behind her. She turned and found Jason leaning against the wall, arms crossed, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Had fun?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. "None of your business," she replied, trying to pass by him to enter her room. Jason held her arm, not forcefully, but firmly. "You're my nurse, my responsibility. Everything concerning you is my business." So I am not your property," Emily broke free abruptly. "No," he laughed bitterly. "Then why are you wearing my bracelet?" Emily looked at her wrist and realized that she had unconsciously put on the gold bracelet before going out. "This doesn't mean anything." "It means everything." He came closer, pressing her against the daughter. "It means that you belong to me as much as I belong to you. It means that you can play at dating other men, but you'll always come back to me." "You're crazy," she whispered, but felt her heart racing with his proximity. "Crazy with jealousy," he admitted, bringing his lips to her ear. "Crazy with desire. Crazy with love." "This isn't love." Emily tried to move away, but he placed his hands on either side of her head, trapping her. "Then teach me," he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Teach me to love right. Teach me to be the man you deserve." Emily felt tears burning her eyes. "You can't learn to love, Jason. You only know how to possess." "Then let me possess you," he whispered, gently kissing her neck. "Let me be your first man, your first time, your first pain, and your first pleasure." "No," she pushed him, but without strength. "Not like this." "Then how?" he asked, holding her face in his hands. "Tell me how and I'll do it. Tell me what you want and I'll give it." Emily stared at him, seeing the vulnerability behind all that arrogance. "I want to be free to choose. I want to be courted, not hunted. I want to be loved, not possessed." "I can try," he said, but Emily saw the struggle in his eyes. "But I can't promise I'll succeed. I can't promise I won't go crazy when I see you with another man." "Then don't promise," she replied, placing her hand over his heart. "Just try." Jason nodded, kissing the palm of her hand. "But in return you give me a chance. A real chance to win your heart. And if I fall in love with David?" His eyes darkened dangerously. "That won't happen." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're already in love," he said, smiling with a confidence that irritated her. "With me. You just haven't admitted it. Yet." Emily was about to respond when her phone rang. It was the nursing home where her mother was temporarily staying for some tests. She answered with a tight heart. "Miss Emily, your mother had a crisis. You need to come urgently." Emily hung up the phone with trembling hands. "I need to go. My mother—" "I'll take you," said Jason immediately. "You don't have to—" I'm not offering." He grabbed his car keys. "I'm going." The trip to town was tense. Emily prayed quietly, while Jason drove in silence, occasionally touching her hand to comfort her. When they arrived at the home, they found Martha sedated but stable. "She had an agitation crisis," explained the nurse in charge. "She kept screaming for Richard, saying he was drowning. We had to sedate her." Emily knelt beside the bed, holding her mother's hand. "I'm here, Mum," she whispered, though she knew she couldn't hear. Jason stood behind her, a hand gently resting on her shoulder. "She'll be all right," he said softly. "No, she won't," Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She's losing herself a little more each day. Soon she won't recognize me anymore. Then let's make the most of the time we have, said Jason, kneeling beside her. Let's give her the best treatment possible. I don't have money for... I do, he interrupted. Let me help. Emily stared at him, seeing sincerity in his eyes. Why? Because you saved my life, he answered simply. Now let me save hers. That night, Emily understood that she was losing the battle against her own feelings. Jason might be possessive, obsessive, dangerous, but he was also capable of gestures of kindness that touched her soul. And that terrified her more than any threat. 2 weeks later, Martha was transferred to a private clinic in Boston, the best in the region for Alzheimer's treatment. Emily knew she couldn't afford even 1 day of that treatment, but Jason had insisted it was an investment, not charity. You'll pay me by working, he said, but they both knew it was a lie. No nurse's salary would cover those costs. The debt wasn't just financial. Emily felt she was owing her soul to him, and that made her vulnerable in a way she had never experienced. Each gesture of kindness from Jason was like an invisible chain binding her more tightly to him, and she was beginning to wonder if that wasn't exactly what he wanted. You're buying me, she said one morning, while preparing his blood pressure medication. I'm taking care of the woman I love, he replied, watching her with those dark eyes that seemed to see through her soul. You don't love me, Emily shook her head. You want me? It's different. Can I want without loving? He asked, rising from the armchair and walking toward her. Can I think of you every dawn? Imagine what it would be like to wake up with you in my arms, feel my heart race every time you enter the room, and that not be love. Emily felt the... Emily. Air leave her lungs. That's obsession. Then cure me, he said, stopping right in front of her. If I'm sick, you're a nurse. Cure me. That's not how it works, she whispered, but couldn't move away. No. He raised his hand, gently touching her face. Then how does it work, Emily? How do I stop dreaming about you? How do I stop wanting to protect you from the whole world? How do I stop imagining what it would be like to make love to you? His words were like fire on her skin. Emily felt she was losing the battle against her own desires, against the magnetic attraction she felt for this dangerous and fascinating man. You can't talk to me like that, she said, but her voice came out weak, almost inaudible. Why? He moved closer, until she could feel the heat of his body. Because you're a virgin. Because no one has ever talked to you about desire, about passion, about everything your body is feeling right now. Emily closed her eyes, trying to block the sensations his words evoked. Stop. No, he whispered, bringing his lips to her ear. I won't stop until you admit that you feel the same as I do. That when I'm close, your heart races. That when I touch you, even if it's just an accidental brush, your skin burns. That when you see me talking with other women, you feel jealous. I don't feel jealous, she lied, but opened her eyes to face him. No, he smiled, a dangerous smile that made her tremble. Then you won't mind if I tell you that I invited an ex-girlfriend to dinner tonight. Emily felt a pang of something she preferred not to name. You can have dinner with whoever you want. Samantha Ferreira, a model, former Miss America, he continued, observing every micro-expression on her face. Blonde, perfect body, very experienced in bed, everything you're not. The mention of another woman's sexual experiences was like a slap to Emily's face. She moved away abruptly, putting away the medications with jerky movements. Great. You two must have a lot in common. Jealousy, he said, satisfied. Finally. Admitting that you feel jealous. I don't feel jealous. She turned to face him, her eyes gleaming with anger. I feel pity. Pity for a woman who's going to get involved with a man who doesn't know how to love. Then teach me, he asked, his voice suddenly vulnerable. Teach me to love, Emily. Teach me to be the man you need. I can't teach what you learn by living, she replied, but felt her resistance melting in the face of his vulnerability. Then, live with me, he said, holding her hands. Live with me and let me learn. Emily was about to respond when Jason's phone rang. He answered with impatience, but his expression quickly changed. "When?" he asked, his voice tense. "Are you sure?" Pause. "No, don't do anything. I'm coming." He hung up the phone with a somber expression. "I need to travel to New York. Urgent." "Did something happen?" "Problems with the company," he said, but Emily realized it was something more serious. "I'll have to stay there for a few days. You're coming with me. I can't leave my mother." "Your mother is well cared for," he interrupted, "and I need you." "For what?" "For everything," he replied, holding her face in his hands. "To remind me that there's goodness in the world, to give me strength to face what's ahead, to make me feel I'm not alone." Emily saw fear in his eyes, a vulnerability he rarely showed. "Jason, what's happening?" "My past is coming back to haunt me," he said, "and I don't know if I can protect you from what's coming." "Protect me from what?" "From men who want to destroy me," he answered, kissing her forehead. "And who won't hesitate to use you to do it." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She was getting involved in something much bigger and more dangerous than she imagined. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw the same man she had saved on the beach, lost and desperate for salvation. "I'll go," she finally said, "but not for you, for me, because I need to understand what's happening to me." Jason smiled. A smile that mixed relief and desire. "You won't regret it." "I'm already regretting it," she replied, but knew it was a lie. The truth was that she wanted to go, wanted to be near him, wanted to discover how far that dangerous feeling could take. The flight to New York was tense. Jason spent most of the time on the phone, speaking in a low voice with lawyers and business partners, his face growing increasingly somber. Emily watched the city approach through the window of the private jet, feeling completely out of her element. She had never flown before, had never left Massachusetts, and now was being launched into the financial center of the country alongside a man who carried dangerous secrets. Jason's apartment in New York was a reflection of his personality. Luxurious, imposing, and cold, it occupied the entire top floor of a building in Midtown with a panoramic view of the city. Glass walls, modern dark-toned furniture, expensive works of art that seemed more like investments than decoration. Emily felt like a stranger in a world she didn't understand. "You'll stay in the guest room," said Jason, showing her a room that was larger than her entire house. "Here it has everything you need. If you want anything, just ask." "Jason," she called before he left, "what's going on? Why did you bring me here?" He stopped at the door without turning. "Because I can't leave you far from me. Not now." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give." He turned, and Emily saw weariness in his eyes. "Tomorrow I have a meeting that could change everything. After that, maybe I can explain." That night, Emily barely slept. The big city frightened her with its constant noises, its lights that never went out. She got up several times, walking through the living room, admiring the view of the illuminated city. It was during one of these walks that she heard voices coming from Jason's office. "You have no choice, West," said a male voice she didn't recognize. "Either you sign the papers, or your little nurse becomes news." Emily felt her blood freeze. She approached the half-open door silently, trying to understand what was happening. "Leave her out of this, Richards." It was Jason's voice, loaded with a coldness she had never heard. "Our problem is between us. Not after you brought her." "Here?" laughed the man. "Very pretty, by the way. Too bad she's going to end up getting hurt. If you touch her, I'll kill you." Jason's voice was low, dangerous. "Easy, friend," said Richards. "No need to go that far. You sign the transfer of shares to me, and we all leave happy. You get back your playboy life, I get back what's rightfully mine, and the girl goes back to her little beach to care for fish." "You know I can't do that," replied Jason. "These shares aren't just mine. There are other investors involved." "Investors who lost everything because of you," Richards laughed bitterly. "Or did you forget how you defrauded the contracts? How you diverted the money? How you lied to all of us?" Emily leaned against the wall, trying to process what she was hearing. Had Jason really committed fraud? Had he lied about who he was? "I've already paid for my mistakes," said Jason. "I returned what I could, took responsibility." "Publicly," interrupted Richards, "but privately, you still have billions hidden in offshore accounts. Billions that should be ours. I don't have access to those accounts, lied Jason. You know that. I do, said a new female voice. Emily recognized it as Samantha's, the ex-girlfriend model whom Jason had mentioned. I have all the banking information, all the codes. You were very confident with me when we were together. Samantha. Jason's voice had a tone of betrayal. You work for him? I work for myself, she responded coldly. You used me, Jason. You promised me marriage, made me believe we were partners, and then discarded me like garbage when your business went downhill. Now it's my turn. So that's it, said Jason, and Emily could hear the bitterness in his voice. Blackmail. Negotiation, corrected Richards. You have 48 hours. Either you sign the transfer, or your little nurse becomes headline news. And believe me, I have enough contacts in the press to destroy her reputation too. Emily heard footsteps approaching the door and ran back to her room, her heart beating wildly. When Jason entered a few minutes later, she pretended to be asleep but knew he could tell from her irregular breathing. Emily, he whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. I know you're awake. She opened her eyes, facing him in the dim light. I heard everything. I figured, he sighed. I'm sorry. I didn't want you to find out like this. So it's true? You defrauded investors? Yes, he answered simply. 5 years ago, when the company was broken, I falsified some documents, inflated some numbers. I got million-dollar investments based on lies. Why? Because I didn't want to lose everything, he said, running his hands through his hair. Because I was young, arrogant, and thought I could control everything. Because I didn't want to admit I had failed. And now? Now I'm paying, he stood up, walking to the window. They want the company shares, they want total control. If I don't give it, they'll use you against me. Then give it, said Emily, surprising him. Give them what they want. It's not that simple, he turned to her. If I do that, other innocent people will get hurt. Employees, small investors who trusted me after I decided to redeem myself. Emily saw the dilemma in his eyes. He was caught between protecting her and protecting other innocent people. Is there a third option? There is, he returned to the bed. I can send you back home. Now. Tonight. No, she said immediately. I won't run away. Emily, you don't understand the danger. I do, she interrupted, standing up to face him. But I won't let you face this alone. Not after you took care of my mother. Not after you saved me, too. I didn't save you, he shook his head. You saved me, remember? We saved each other, she said, touching his face. And now we're going to solve this together. Jason held her hand, kissing the palm. You don't know what you're talking about. I do, she replied. And for the first time in months, she felt completely certain about something. I know that I love you. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning and danger. Jason stared at her, as if he couldn't believe what he had heard. Emily's words echoed in the silence of the room like distant thunder. Jason stared at her as if she had just confessed to a crime, his dark eyes shining with a mixture of desire and desperation that made her tremble. You can't love me, he said, his voice hoarse. Not after everything you heard, not knowing who I really am. I know who you are. Emily moved closer, placing her hands on his chest. You're the man who wanted to die because he couldn't live with the weight of his own mistakes. You're the man who saved me without knowing, who took care of my mother, who is willing to sacrifice himself to protect innocent people. I'm also the man who defrauded investors, he held her wrists, who ruined families, who built a fortune on lies, and who is trying to redeem himself, she added. Doesn't that count? It doesn't erase what I did. He shook his head. You deserve a better man. You deserve David, someone pure without blood on his hands. I don't want David, Emily said, surprising herself with the firmness in her own voice. I want you, with all your mistakes, with all your darkness. I love you. Jason. He pulled her to him with a force that almost hurt her, kissing her with a desperation that spoke of months of repressed desire. Emily responded with equal intensity, her hands entangled in his hair, her entire body on fire. You don't know what you're doing, he he murmured against her lips. You don't know what you're asking for. I'm asking to be yours, she whispered, and the words came easier than she had imagined. Completely yours. Jason pulled away abruptly, eyes wide. Emily, you're a virgin. You can't make that decision, in the middle of a crisis. I'm not making it in the middle of a crisis, she said, touching his face. I'm making it because I don't want to live in fear. Because if something happens to me, I want it to be after I've really lived. Nothing is going to happen to you, he swore, holding her face in his hands. I won't let it. You can't control everything, she smiled sadly. You can't protect me from all the evil in the world. But you can give me a reason to fight. You already have 1,000 reasons, he said. Your mother, your vocation, your future. Now I have one more, she interrupted. You. Jason kissed her again, this time with a tenderness that contrasted with the previous passion. It was a kiss that spoke of love and fear, of desire and reverence. When they separated, Emily saw tears in his eyes. I love you, he said, as if the words were torn from his soul. God forgive me, but I love you more than my own life. Then show me, she asked, pulling him closer. Show me what it's like to be loved by you. What happened next was a slow and careful dance, Jason treating her as if she were made of crystal, each touch a silent question, each caress a promise. Emily discovered that her body was capable of sensations she had never imagined, that love could be both gentle and wild, both sacred and sinful. When they finally became one, Emily understood why her mother always said that the first man marks the soul forever. Jason didn't just take her virginity, he took her soul, leaving his mark on every fiber of her being. Afterward, lying in the dim light, Emily nestled in his arms. He whispered in the dark, Now you're mine forever. And you're mine, she replied, drawing circles on his chest. No matter what happens. It will matter, he said, kissing her hair. When they discover that you're my weakness, they'll use that against us. Then don't let them discover it, she raised her head to face him. Fight, Jason. Don't give up. I don't want to fight anymore, he confessed. I'm tired of fighting, of lying, of carrying so much weight. I just want to live in peace with you. Then we'll find a way, she said, determined. We'll find a way to solve this without anyone getting hurt. Naive, he smiled sadly. You still believe in happy endings. I do, she confirmed, because I believe in us. The next morning, Emily woke up alone. She found a note on the pillow. Gone to resolve everything, back at noon. I love you. But noon came and passed without news from Jason. Emily tried calling him, but the phone went straight to voicemail. At 2 in the afternoon, she received a call from an unknown number. Miss Emily, it was Richard's voice. Your boyfriend did something stupid. Now you're going to have to pay for it. Where is he? Asked Emily, trying to control her panic. Safe, replied Richards. For now. But if you don't come to the address, I'm going to send in a text message alone in 1 hour. He won't stay safe. What do you want? Justice, he answered, or revenge, depends on your point of view. The call ended and Emily received a message with an address in the port area. She knew it was a trap, knew she should call the police, but she also knew she couldn't risk Jason's life. She took a taxi and headed to the indicated address, her heart beating erratically. She had no idea what she would find there, but she knew her life was about to change forever. Again. When the taxi stopped in front of an abandoned warehouse, Emily took a deep breath and got out. There was no turning back. All she could do was trust in the love she felt for Jason and in the strength that love gave her. She entered the dark warehouse, calling his name. The response came from a voice she knew well, but which was now laden with pain. Emily, you shouldn't have come. She ran toward the voice, and what she saw made her world crumble. Jason was tied to a chair in the center of the warehouse, his face marked with bruises, blood running from a cut on his forehead. When he saw Emily, his eyes filled with despair and anger. You shouldn't have come, he repeated, his voice hoarse. You should have run away. Very romantic, said Richards, emerging from the shadows with 2 armed men. The damsel comes to save the knight. Too bad this isn't a fairy tale. Emily approached slowly, her hands trembling. What do you want? I already told you, Richards smiled coldly. Justice, revenge. Your boyfriend destroyed my life, and now I'm going to destroy his. I already told you I don't have access to the accounts anymore, said Jason, trying to free himself from the ropes. I transferred everything to a restitution fund. Lie, said Samantha, appearing from behind a pile of crates. I know you've hidden at least 200 million. Money. That was supposed to be ours. It was from innocent investors. Jason stared at her with contempt. People who trusted me. Like I trusted, Samantha came closer, pointing a gun at him. Like we all trusted. You used us, Jason. You deceived us. And now you want to do the same, Emily said, surprising everyone with the firmness in her voice. You want to steal, blackmail, kill. You're just like him. We're not, Richards turned to her. We're the victims. Victims don't make more victims, Emily replied, taking a step toward Jason. Victims don't kidnap innocent people. Innocent? Samantha laughed bitterly. You slept with a criminal, honey. That makes you an accomplice. That makes me human, Emily said, kneeling beside Jason. People make mistakes. People regret. People change. Some people, said Richards, need to pay for their mistakes. He's already paying, Emily stood up, facing him. Every day he carries the weight of what he did. Every day he tries to redeem himself. It's not enough, Samantha pointed the gun at Emily. It will never be enough. Then kill me, said Jason, his voice desperate. Do whatever you want to me, but let her go. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with it, Richard smiled. She's your weakness, Jason. Your only weakness, and we're going to use that. If you hurt her, Jason began, but Richards interrupted him. You'll what? Kill us? Destroy us? He laughed. You're tied to a chair, friend. You can't do anything. I can, Emily said, surprising everyone. I can do something. What can you do? Asked Samantha, curious. I can forgive, Emily replied simply. I can forgive Jason for his mistakes. I can forgive you for what you're doing. I can choose love instead of revenge. Forgiveness doesn't pay bills, said Richards. No, Emily agreed. But it liberates the soul. You can kill me, you can kill Jason, you can take all the money you want, but you'll never have peace. You'll never have what you really want. And what do we want? Asked Samantha. To love and be loved, Emily answered. To have a life worth living. To have hope. You're very naive, Samantha shook her head. I am, Emily agreed. But I'm also free. Free to love, free to forgive, free to choose light instead of darkness. Enough philosophy. Richards lost his patience. You have a choice, Emily. Either you help us get the money or you watch Jason die. No, Emily said, and her voice echoed in the empty warehouse. I have a different choice. She threw herself. In front of Jason at the moment, Samantha pulled the trigger, the sound of the gunshot echoing like thunder in the enclosed space. The pain was instant, burning in her right shoulder, but she didn't scream. She just knelt, her hand pressing the wound. Emily, Jason shouted, desperate. Why did you do that? Because I love you, she whispered, smiling despite the pain. Because someone had to break the cycle of revenge. Samantha let the gun drop, eyes wide. I didn't want to shoot you. I know, Emily said, her voice weak. You just wanted the pain to stop. But pain doesn't stop with revenge. It only stops with love. Richards approached, seeing the blood spreading across Emily's blouse. You're crazy. Completely crazy. Maybe, she agreed, but at least I'm alive. Really alive. It was then that police sirens began to sound in the distance, getting louder every second. Someone had called the police, perhaps a neighbor who heard the shot. You have a choice, Emily said, looking at Richards and Samantha. You can run and keep running for the rest of your lives, or you can stay and try to find a way to heal the pain you carry. Samantha knelt beside Emily, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry for everything. I forgive you, Emily said, touching the woman's face. I forgive you both. Richards looked at the two armed men, then at Emily bleeding on the floor, then at Jason, who was crying tied to the chair. "This isn't how it was supposed to end," he said, but Emily saw that something had changed in his eyes. "No," she agreed. "It should end with all of us free. Free from anger, free from revenge, free to start over." The sirens were getting closer and closer. Richards made a sign to the men who cut the ropes binding Jason. He ran to Emily, holding her in his arms. "You're going to be fine," he whispered, pressing the wound to stop the bleeding. "You're not going to leave me." "I'm not," she promised, touching his face. "I'll never leave you." When the police stormed the warehouse, they found a strange scene. Jason holding Emily in his arms, Samantha kneeling beside them crying, Richard standing with his hands up, and two armed men who surrendered without resistance. It wasn't a common surrender. It was a surrender of the soul, a recognition that revenge brings no peace, only more pain. And all because a young small-town nurse chose love instead of hate, forgiveness instead of revenge. At the hospital, while the doctors took care of Emily's wound, Jason held her hand and made a promise. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve what you did for me." "You already deserve it," she replied, smiling. "You always did." It was the end of one story and the beginning of another. 6 months later, Emily walked along Rockport Beach at dawn, as she always did before, each shift. But this time she wasn't alone. Jason accompanied her, both silent, watching the sun rise over the ocean that had once almost separated them forever. The judicial process had been long and painful. Jason confessed all his crimes, returned every cent he could trace, and served 2 months in prison before gaining conditional release. Richards and Samantha were also arrested, but received lighter sentences due to Emily's emotional testimony in their favor, speaking about forgiveness and second chances. "You didn't have to do that," said Jason, breaking the silence. "You didn't have to defend them." "I did," Emily replied, unconsciously touching her shoulder, where the scar from the gunshot still hurt on cold days. "I had to because someone defended you when no one else believed." "You," he smiled, stopping to face her. "You were the only one who believed I could change." "I wasn't the only one," she shook her head. "Your mother believed, even after everything. Your father did. She never lost faith in you." Jason lowered his eyes. Margaret had died 3 years earlier, never knowing her son had become exactly like the man she so hated. "She didn't live to see who I became." "No," Emily agreed. "But she also didn't live to see who you became afterward, the person you are today." "And who am I today?" he asked, vulnerable. "You're the man who gave up billions to do what was right," she answered. "You're the man who faced prison instead of running away. You're the man who woke up by my side every night for the past few months, holding my hand when I had nightmares about that warehouse." "You still have nightmares because of me," he said with pain in his voice. "I have nightmares," she corrected, "but I also have the most beautiful dreams of my life, and they're all with you." Jason pulled her to him, kissing her with the same intensity as the first day, but now with a confidence that didn't exist before. It was the kiss of a man who knew he was loved, not despite his mistakes, but including them. "I married you," he murmured against her lips. "I married you in a simple ceremony, on the beach, with your mother as a witness." "Not yet," Emily laughed. "But you will." "Will I?" He knelt on the sand, taking a small box from his pocket. "Emily Maria Wilson, woman who saved me from death and taught me to live, will you marry me?" Emily looked at the simple ring, a solitaire that shone with the light of the rising sun. It wasn't the most expensive diamond money could buy, but it was the most beautiful she had ever seen. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. 1,000 times yes. When he placed the ring on her finger, Emily felt that life finally made sense. All the losses, all the pain, all the moments of despair had led to this perfect moment on the beach where it all began. "We have to tell your mother," said Jason, standing up and pulling her into an embrace. "She won't remember," Emily said sadly. "Yesterday she asked me who I was." "It doesn't matter," he kissed her hair. "We'll tell her anyway. We'll tell her every time we visit. We'll make her part of our story." "Our story," Emily repeated, liking the sound of those words. "I like that." "It's going to be a complicated story," he warned. "My past will always follow me." There will always be people who won't forgive, who will judge you for being with me. I don't care, she replied firmly. I don't care because I know who you really are. I know you would do everything differently if you could. I know you love me. I do, he confirmed. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love to the point of being afraid of losing you every day. You won't lose me, Emily promised. You'll never lose me again. How can you be so sure? Because I chose you, she said, touching his face. Not the man you were, not the man you could be. I chose you exactly as you are today. With your mistakes, your fears, your scars, I chose all your humanity. And I chose yours, he replied. Your kindness, your capacity to forgive, your unshakable faith in love. I chose your light. They walked back to the house they now shared, a simple two-bedroom construction with a view of the sea. Emily had insisted on staying close to the hospital where she worked, close to the community that had always been hers. Jason had agreed immediately. After years of living in palaces of glass and steel, he had discovered that happiness lived in simple places. David came to visit me yesterday, said Emily as they prepared breakfast. Oh, Jason tensed involuntarily. What did he want? To congratulate us on our engagement, she smiled, and to tell me that he always knew you were the right man for me. He knew? Jason frowned. How? Because I never looked at him the same way I looked at you, she answered. Even when you scared me, even when I resisted, my eyes searched for you. He noticed. Wise man, Jason admitted. I hated him. I know, Emily laughed. You didn't hide your jealousy very well. I don't hide anything from you, he pulled her to him. I'll never hide anything again. Neither will I, she promised. We're a family now. You, me, my mother, and all the people we choose to love. Family. He repeated the word as if it was sacred. I always wanted a family. Now you have one, she kissed his lips softly. Now you have everything. And it was true, they had everything that really mattered. Love, forgiveness, hope, and the certainty that they had chosen to stay together not out of despair or necessity, but from a conscious decision to build something beautiful from the ashes of their pasts. As the sun rose completely over the ocean, Emily and Jason prepared for another day of their simple and extraordinary lives. She would go to the hospital to care for people. He would work on his restitution and charity projects. At night they would return home to each other's arms, to the peace they had found after so much chaos. The sea that had once almost separated them was now witness to their love. The waves that broke on the shore sang a song of renewal, of second chances, of happy endings won with blood, sweat, and tears. Emily Maria Wilson and Jason West had learned that true love is not found, it is built. Brick by brick, day by day, choice after choice, and they had chosen to build together forever. On the sand of the beach where it all began, two wounded hearts discovered that sometimes the deepest scars